thank you for joining us today. I'm Nick. I'm an investor with Samsung Next here in Berlin. And one area that's really fascinated us in the recent years, and one which we're heavily invested in as well, is the idea of avatars and AI-generated characters. Now, cyber culture has revolved around avatars for years. Human simulations have existed. We're playing games with avatars in them. But thanks to rapidly advancing technologies, we're about to see a proliferation of these in our lives. And I'm thrilled to be joined by a bunch of technologists and artists who are at the paradigm of this new revolution, all based in Berlin, I might add, and very excited to be talking about where we are and what this all means for society. So over on your far right is Moritz. He is the founder and CEO of 20BN. It's one of the true deep tech startups in Berlin, in my opinion, and they're building the next generation of virtual assistants that are visually enabled and interactive. Co-founded with a very leading professor from the Montreal Institute of Learning Algorithms. And if this topic interests you, they have a great newsletter called Embodied AI, which I think if you Google, you should be able to find. Next up, we have Hermione, the founder of Mimic Productions, a 3D character studio that has done work for clients and talents such as Ronaldo, Roger Federer, Marina Abramovich, Jeff Koons, Saatchi & Saatchi, Nike, the list goes on. Award-winning, she's also a trained performance artist, fashion designer, and is behind the 3D performance art avatar, M, who you'll see in a second. And finally, Johanna Jaskowska. If I had asked you what you thought of filters about a year ago, you might think kawaii, bunny ears, and face swaps, and cat faces. Johanna changed all of that. Earlier this year, she released a face filter on Instagram called Beauty 3000, which has since had over 400 million impressions. Her Instagram has gone from a couple hundred to close to 1 million in a few months, and recently she also collaborated with the Fabricant and Dapper Labs to auction off the world's first piece of digital couture on the blockchain. So definitely follow her on Instagram and start making yourselves look like futuristic cyborgs. To give a little bit more context as to what each of these are doing, we've got a short video. If you could please play that, and then we'll jump straight in.
20BN Neurons builds the next generation of virtual assistants that are visually enabled and interactive. Having created the world's first AI avatar named Millie that can see, understand, and interact with users, 20BN is offering a full range of life-sized intelligent assistants that support consumers on location. At the core of Millie's intelligence is 20BN's human behavior understanding technology, powered by our global video platform that collects high-quality annotated data for deep learning. Thanks to over 3 million proprietary videos, Millie understands over 1,000 human actions and gestures. 20BN is recognized as a CB Insights Top 100 AI Startups Worldwide in 2019 and a Gartner Cool Vendor in AI Core Technologies in 2018. Our technology is trusted by the world's leading businesses in technology, automotive, and consumer products, as well as over 40 of the world's top 100 universities. Our founders have 30 years of combined experience in deep learning and software development. Yoshua Bengio, the Turing Award recipient in 2018, is 20BN's founding advisor. For more information, check out our website at 20bn.com.
Instead of obtaining a mirror, obtain a person. Look into them.
You see something and you're confused. You're not sure. This moment where they're confused, I think it's a really interesting moment. I love to play with light and shadow on the virtual space. I'm not a developer, but I'm really interested with this. I'm using Spark AR because it's kind of like easy. In 2 clicks, you can change the position of the light. You can make it blink, you can make it rotate. You can play with light like it's not possible in reality and be a bit more experimental.
Great, thank you. And we'll be taking questions at the end, so if you have any questions, just send them to the Slido. Now, to set the stage and just make sure that the audience knows that we aren't just talking about giant blue creatures in Pandora, I want to ask each of you what the concept of an avatar means in each of your domains. And I want to start with you, Johanna. I think it was George Berkeley, an Irish philosopher, who said, "To be is to be perceived." And so, are we already living in a world full of avatars in social media, the way we represent ourselves?
Yeah, exactly. I think just like Instagram, for example, as a platform, is already like, we already all have like avatars. Like Instagram, your personal Instagram page is a place where you will be representing yourself. So just the fact of like building a representation of yourself is already like playing an avatar, as well as like each of us can have like different accounts, as we can have like different avatars. We can like represent yourself through our work or through like a different type of storytelling. Like I like I start to develop my personal account as Johwska, as a different entity of myself. Like I started to dig into it because like my account like started to blow up, and I re-questioned myself about like what is my identity, and started to detach myself of my digital identity and my real identity. So I see Johwska as a weird digital entity which is different from my own self, which is like becoming very digitalized and close to the alien AI kind of persona, and I like to play around with this. But of course it's a process, and I build a different account where like it's Johwska in real life, where I would be like more spontaneous and more close to my real self. But of course, like through my work, through this small AR artworks, I'm kind of like building different avatars. So every filters or AR small artworks will like be one avatar, and everybody will be able to experience this avatar through themselves. So it's in a very subtle way where like it's like merging like yourself and an avatar or like a digital persona, but like it's more like performing this avatar but still being yourself. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Hermione?
I think it's like, I don't know if I want to say it just has to be digital or physical entity perhaps that you can inhabit and puppet in a way of speech or performance activities.
Great. And for you, Moritz, it's a slightly different concept, isn't it?
Slightly different, yeah. I mean, as you already see, I mean, the word avatar is kind of a catch-all phrase for many things. It can be anything from realistic, high-resolution avatar like little Michaela, or the type of digital copies that Hermione is doing on social media. It can be less realistic, stylized avatars like Bitmoji or Pokemon Go, I think also part of kind of avatar. It can be deepfakes, video manipulation, and the way we use the term is slightly different, as you say. So when we think of avatars, we think of AI assistants that are visually enabled, so they have a camera and they can see you as the user, and they're also embodied, so you can see them. And so it's kind of a new form of AI assistant that is a little different than the smart speakers that maybe some of you have at home, Alexa, Google Home. It's different in the sense that it has a camera, so it can see you. It can be much more proactive, much more perceptive. You don't have to trigger it with a wake word. You don't have to talk to it in this weird command-response style way, but rather it sees you. It can, proactively jump in when it sees that you need help, and it can also do lots of things that smart speakers can't do today. For example, when you come home in the evening, for example, you might find in the future an avatar on your television or your iPad And this avatar could be your personal AI fitness coach that walks you through your personalized workout. It can see what you're doing and watch. It can correct you in real time, saying, you're doing that too quickly, the posture is wrong. It can count repetitions, it can hold you accountable, and so it's almost as if you have your personal trainer at home. And so I think where smart speakers and also AI assistants in general will be going is it will be much more interactive. It will feel much more human-like, and I think the human-like will mostly come from these avatars, being perceptive and seeing you through the eyes of a camera.
Great, thank you. And maybe we'll just stick with you there for a second, Moritz, because the technologies to get to where you're talking about still seem a bit away. What do we need to get to this general AI and for an avatar for an AI assistant to be truly embodied and to truly understand and interact with human beings?
So in broad strokes, I would say it's two things. The one is kind of the brain or the AI, the cognition and the perception, and the other one is the embodiment, which is basically the rendering of a digital human. In terms of the cognition and the perception, that's really where my company is coming from. So 3 years ago, when we started the company, we started with a mission of teaching machines to perceive the world like humans, and we started doing that by basically building a huge crowd on the internet. Who was teaching the AI how the world works. And these are very short video clips of people doing very, very simple things. Basically, we asked them to pick up objects and manipulate them. And you start really from the ground up like a child learns about the real world. You ask the people to pick up a bottle and put them down again, move them to the left, move them to the right, let it fall. And so over time, the AI learns basic physical concepts about the world, like gravity, object occlusion, and that kind of stuff. And then over time, you start building up these little simple concepts, and then over time, AI learns how the world really works. And I think that also is where the magic comes from. So to us, on the rendering side, we chose to, for now, use kind of cartoonish characters like a Pixar kind of character, because there's still this concept of the Uncanny Valley that makes it really creepy if you look at a hyper-realistic human that is moving, slightly weirdly. I think also Hermione can attest to that the rendering of the characters is very, very good today, but everything that is involving motion or behaviors is still a little off, and so that's basically something that we are still working on. And so our company is coming from the perception and cognitive side. Currently, we use very simple avatars. I think they become more hyper-realistic over time. And importantly, I think over time, these two things that I mentioned earlier, the brain and the body, will merge at some point. So the eye at some point will also control the hyper-realistic rendering of the character through a generative adversarial network, and it will also control the motions, the behavior of that character, all done by one neural network. And I think that's a really exciting kind of roadmap technologically.
Great. Hermione, Mimic is creating hyper-realistic humans and rendering them. Are we still in the Uncanny Valley? What do we need to get beyond it?
I think that, as Moritz said, one of the most challenging things is actually in motion. I feel like aesthetically, in terms of rendering of skin quality, eyes, realism, I think we're there. The challenging part does come through motion and believable facial expression and things like this. But at the same time, I'm also, because I have my own digital avatar who I puppet as well, and I'm also kind of on a mission to have people embrace her qualities. She does have slightly different qualities to me that are just a part of the technology. And as a society, we're sort of moving towards inclusivity, and I almost want to group digital humans into that group. Can we learn to accept that maybe when she blinks, her head shakes a little bit? Can we learn to accept that quality in her? And that's something that I'm sort of interested to promote as an artist as well.
Thank you. Johanna, you're operating in a world with what's actually become a proliferation of digital influencers. How many in the audience know who Little Michaela is? A good amount of you. If you have Instagram, follow her. She has a couple million followers, but she does not exist. But people treat her as if she does exist, and there have been a lot more. She recently kissed, who is it that she kissed? Bella Hadid for a Calvin Klein underwear commercial. And so, I'm curious, we've seen a proliferation of them of late. Why do you think this is? What are their advantages?
It's very fascinating because we know already a video game, for example. So we create characters and we create the storytelling around it and a very interesting narration, and we kind of project ourselves through this character through the video games, or movies with 3D characters, for example. The interesting things with this 3D influencers is that they living in a platform that we used to use us as the real human, as a true people, I don't know. But they're not real, but they do everything like we do. So it's the next step of storytelling. I see it a bit of, I mean, I don't want to say back in the days, but 10 years ago, it was the big, how it's called, TV show, reality TV show. So we have reality TV show and we follow this real people lives and everything feels real. And for me, this digital influencers is a bit like this, is a bit the next step of reality TV show through Instagram, and they do everything like we do, and it's getting, the storytelling is very worked through and very interesting. We kind of love them, we can interact with them, although it's not a real person that is behind it, it's the whole team that is working on the storytelling and behaving like a real person, but this border is very interesting and very fascinating. And this last ad of Lil Miquela kissing Bella Hadid, a digital character kissing a real human model, it's a bit of a mindfuck, but it's wow, okay.
Do you mind if I jump on?
Yeah, you have some interesting thoughts about this and the future of storytelling.
I mean, it's since little Michaela's kind of growth, we've had such a huge influx of people wanting to create these 3D social influencers. And I think it means for big brands, they can ultimately have complete control over this person, fabricate absolutely everything it is they do, what they stand for, what they say. If you'd consider that influencers are one of the strongest kind of advertising platforms, then for a brand, that's a really powerful thing to have. So it's almost the ultimate control.
These influencers are beautiful, though. Is there not a danger of advancing stereotypes and impossible image standards?
That's something that I'm really, really fascinated by, because I think I see a future where we'll all inevitably have our own 3D avatars. Our online interaction is increasing all the time, and in that case, if you entertain that circumstance, I think that there's going to be such an insane redefinition of what beauty could be. For example, I think there's going to be, obviously, when the majority of people are a good group of people, when they create their avatars, who's not going to want to be beautiful and fit and young? But then at the same time, I think there's going to be these inevitable subcultures that develop where maybe there's going to be a group of people who want to have purple skin and 5 arms. I think that there's a huge amount of potential, and it's something that I see it as enhancing the human experience rather than pushing us into a corner. I think it's inevitable there'll be growth in all areas, not just in typical forms of beauty, but alternative ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, also interactivity, I think will change a lot. I think, animated characters are really as old as human storytelling itself. I mean, thousands of years ago, we had cave drawings of animals in motion. last century, Walt Disney pioneered animated characters in short films and movies. Then we had Pixar in the 90s, pioneering computer animated storytelling. And I think it will continue in the 21st century with avatars, with one key difference though. I think in the past, these animated stories were consumed almost passively by an audience in a curated medium like a movie. And in the future, I think that we will interact and engage with these AI-driven characters, whether it's on social media or in a movie, and we will become part of the story. So you might be in a cinema, in the future, and you actually can interact with the character. The character might give you objects, and so you almost become part of the story and can maybe even drive the story. So I think it's a hugely exciting time for anyone who's involved in artistic storytelling, across the board, whether it's entertainment or some of the other commercial applications.
Great, thank you. Moritz, just turning to the business side of virtual assistants for a second. Where do you see as the first business opportunities for these embodied AI assistants? And will they not just take human jobs?
I don't think so. I mean, it will take a long time for an AI to be on the level of a human in terms of providing excellent service, one-on-one. But I would answer the question in two ways. I think the answer is always different for startups than for big tech companies, because you always have to be careful that you don't enter their kill zone. So I think the big tech companies, I think we can all safely assume that the big tech players, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, they are all working on, I think, embodied seeing AI. I think they will see it as the next iteration of their smarts, because it has to come. It is completely obvious to me. And so they will continue on their kind of horizontal platform play. They have already a stronghold in the home. So I think for startups, there's an ocean of opportunities when it comes to AI assistants that are highly verticalized, and especially outside of the home. I think one of the reasons why these smart speakers like Alexa or Google Home haven't penetrated the kind of public spaces, or whether it's a retail store or an airport or a fitness studio, is because the form factor is wrong. I mean, can you imagine walking up to a shelf and then going up to like a little puck that's on the wall and say some trigger word and then like speak to it? Like it doesn't feel right. I think it has to be something that looks at you and knows when it has your attention and starts speaking. And so I think avatars, I think one of the big business opportunities is outside the home actually, or in highly verticalized offerings. And I think one offering that could be a huge opportunity is the AI fitness coach I was saying earlier.
Thanks. Johanna and Hermione, both of you have had the experience of essentially living through your own avatars. This brings us to a rather big question and the title of the panel, but do you feel that in this new world we're expanding the definition of the human condition, or as a result of our avatars and these beings we live through, are we in the physical world going to be living a second-class existence in the future?
Deep question.
Yeah.
My experience so far with my digital avatar has been really incredibly liberating. I've never posted a selfie online. I was never someone that put my physical body on display or in the center of my social media or anything like that. However, with my avatar, I am 100% happy to put her in these scenarios, and it's been really liberating. I feel like I can speak more honestly, I can perform more honestly. I didn't expect this response, but that's how I feel. And there's a little part of me that thinks that there is a good proportion of us who are limited by our physical or social environment. And this idea that we could exist as kind of like our ideal selves, or what we perceive our ideal selves to be, somewhere digitally online. I mean, we just briefly talked about post-truth before, but then there's a little part of me that wonders whether that could be the real truth, that we could be liberated from our physical, social limitations and actually become more true to ourselves, potentially through this. That's how it's felt for me. So I don't know, it feels like it could be a really good thing. And then, in question of whether that then puts the physical a little bit
Second class?
second class. I don't know. I always feel like these things are a swinging pendulum. If maybe the physicality starts to become rare, perhaps it becomes more important again as well. So I don't know. It could have the potential for both. I don't know.
Thanks.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, in my case, it really helped me. Like, I'm a very shy person, myself, and getting so much attention make me freak out a bit, about just myself, and it was very overwhelming, and we're questioning myself about my identity and stuff. So creating this kind of character is just helped me to detach myself to this personal anxiousness that is very personal, and that we can all live ourselves. I never expected to get so many attention. So yeah, this kind of it's like you're getting out of your body, and you're seeing yourself with a third person point of view on yourself, and it makes you feel much more confident about how people can perceive you, and how you can perceive or build this persona. Yesterday, I made a very simple experiment. It was just an effect like this. I just put my face as a texture, and I shared it on a closed group on Facebook, and people could just perform myself. So everybody could put myself on my face on their face, and behave myself, and it was very, very strange, Uncanny Valley kind of experiment, but very, very interesting, because I felt like traveling around through the people, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I don't know, I think 3D scanning your full body, and or your face, and letting other people performing your character or your persona is a very, very strange but interesting thing, where you take less care about yourself and your personal self, and you see it from a different point of view. It's very strange and interesting.
And you've also modeled what was the first digital couture item, which was then auctioned on the blockchain. What did it feel like to have this garment, essentially, which defied the laws of gravity, and where will that go?
Yeah, this is one of the most interesting thing that I'm very fascinated about, the digital world, is that we can break the rules, we can invent things that are not possible in the reality, and this is what I like to explore with my effects. Also with this collaboration with the fabricant, when we were concepting the garment, I really wanted to make something that isn't possible to exist in the real life, because it gives you much more value, and this is the moment where you've been confused and fascinated about something because you can't have it in real life, but it can exist in the digital world. And there is so many possibilities, so many things that we can do, invent a dress made out of concrete, or something that is made out of water, whatever. It's an infinite space, and the rules are different. This is what this is 100% what I'm so fascinated by the digital world. Yeah. There is so much to do.
Thanks. I've got one more question, then we'll open it up to the audience, and it's for you, Moritz, because the technology that you guys are creating, and we've seen a lot recently with rendering, with voice synthesis, etc., and you're coming from the cognitive side. We're entering a world of deepfakes, and as a result, with these AI digital beings with human embodiment, we're entering what might be a post-truth world. How do we design to maximize goodness in this world with all this technology coming into the fore?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, deepfake is a portmanteau of deep learning and fake. It's basically you, when it comes to video, you basically superimpose existing videos onto a source video using generative adversarial networks, and you create these videos that look real but are actually fake. And I think some of you might have seen US presidents giving speeches they've never given. There's a really creepy video of Elon Musk as a baby that I showed you recently that I encourage you to check out. So I think you're right. We're entering a post-truth or post-fact world. I was at a conference earlier this year where Eric Horowitz coined the term post-epistemic world, basically a world where you can't trust the news anymore. And I think there's tremendous burden on the AI community to be very conscious of the ethical issues, because every technology you develop can be used or misused in many ways. Guns certainly have dual use. You can use them for greatly positive things like fostering creativity, but you can also abuse them for criminal activity of any kind. Harming people by putting fake stuff online, and it's always very difficult to tell when general AI is going to come. I'm more comfortable making a prediction when you will have a video call with a person where you can't tell afterwards anymore whether the person was real or not. I think it's going to be happening in the short term, maybe in 2 or 3 years. So to answer your question, I think a good starting point is always history. I mean, it's not the first time that we're developing frontier technology that can be used in good and bad ways. I mean, everything in technology can be used in good and bad ways. The atom bomb, chemical weapons, the chemistry behind that can be used for for good things, but also for bad things. It is very difficult. As an AI researcher per se, you can never really be sure a priori how your technology is used. And there's many organizations these days, partnerships on AI, that really try to play it safe. But we're also in kind of a national race for AI with America and China gearing up. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really worried about deepfakes becoming a real thing in the short term, and it's going to be interesting. Like, the internet is 25, 30 years old almost, and maybe we're going to enter an area very soon where nothing on the web can be trusted anymore.
Yep. Thank you. Can we bring up the Slido, please, to see what questions we may have from the audience? Does that mean there are none? There we go. Johanna, maybe not Johanna, Hermione, maybe the first one for you. What do you think about the ethical side of avatars of dead artists? Example, the Amy Winehouse avatar being on tour right now. And have you had requests to make digital doubles of dead artists?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's sensitive, and I mean, the Amy Winehouse does make me cringe as well. But yeah, we actually created 4 of some of the most famous French 70s pop stars for a hologram, and we brought them back to life. I guess it comes down to whoever owns the estate of this particular celebrity and their call on the matter. But I think it certainly needs to be treated sensitively. Yeah.
How about existing artists? Because we spoke last week about artists embodying their younger selves, for example.
Yeah. It's definitely what I see a major potential of this creation of really realistic 3D humans or avatars, in the sense that I think moving forward, every single celebrity or anybody who makes a living off their own body should be getting themselves scanned every 1 to 2 years, and have the capacity to, reperform through their 3D selves. For example, if Kate Moss could be modeling nowadays with her 18-year-old digital version, this is what I think needs to become mandatory for celebrities moving forward, and could really, really change the industry.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
These are all really good questions as well. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, rather. But you guys will all be around, so I encourage those with questions to stick around and ask these panelists. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed that discussion. Cheers.
Thank you.